Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Yes, Coffee Experts Club, Ben Clatterbuck. Good to see you. How you doing today?
Hey, quite well, sir. Quite well. And you?
Awesome. I'm doing very well today. And to all of our listeners that are tuning in today, I hope you are having a fine day. And we are joining us. Drew was not able to make it. He was hiking the Grand Canyon last we lost him. So I'm hoping he's made it out on the other side. Okay. You just get me and Ben today. But it's okay because the topic we're going to talk about today is one that Ben and I talk about a lot. Ben, you and I have talked about this topic a ton over the years.
I feel like I live this topic.
Feel like I'm alive. So here's the deal. If you're new to starting coffee or you're thinking about starting coffee, the topic we're going to talk about today is the most important thing we could possibly talk about. Now, listen, it's not the most sexy topic. It's not the one that everybody's like, woohoo, can't wait to talk about this topic. But if you don't nail this topic, you're not going to last long. There's a coffee shop here in Southern Oregon, just up the street from me, that lasted about 6 months because they didn't nail this topic. I was just with a coffee shop owner on Friday who was in tears over this topic. So if you're struggling with money, if you have concerns about how tight your budget is, if you're concerned about if your coffee shop's going to make it, that's the whole topic today. Lean in. We're going to talk about profitability. We're going to talk about how do you know that your coffee shop is profitable enough to survive it? So I
Mm.
think that, man, this is the topic, Ben, and nobody likes to do it. Everybody gets scared of it. No, I think a lot of business owners out there, Ben, just judge their business based upon their bank account.
Yep.
It's simple, quick math. They watch their bank account. When it's low, they freak out. When it's high, they probably live a little bit too large. Does that sound like anybody know you know?
Yep. 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 Everybody's happy and rays of sunshine when it's a busy, Saturday morning and you're seeing those cups and those dollars roll in on the POS. But when it's a cloudy, cold Thursday evening in December, it's not so fun.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. And I think that a lot of people get worried about it because they really know coffee, right? They know how to serve customers. They know how to create the craft. They know about like the things that seem to matter with coffee, but they don't understand numbers necessarily. They weren't, a lot of these folks weren't book smart people, right? A lot of coffee, especially, they've got that like can do attitude entrepreneur that bootstrapped himself or her strap into this position. And they were able to be scrappy and they were able to do like quick math accounting, right? By watching their bank account. Michael Michalowicz, he has a book called Profit First. And it's a great book. If you haven't checked that out, it's a great place to start because he breaks it down simple. But he talks about how there are so many entrepreneurs that just run their business based on their bank account. And
Mm.
what that can give you is a heart attack. Ben and I, first iteration of doing coffee together, Ben and I worked for a guy that when the bank account was low, he'd be like, freeze all spending, cancel all Amex cards. Nobody else gets to do nothing. I mean, like, he would like
Yep.
pull the brake hard. And then when the money was deeper, he'd be off taking extravagant like Las Vegas trips, taking the whole crew. Spent coming back, the spending budget was crazy, tens of thousands of dollars, taking the crew wild places for experiences. But I feel
Mm.
like if you're not careful, you ride this crazy wave of like high highs and low lows because you don't understand your numbers. And so we're
Yep.
going to talk about numbers today.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met an accountant who was like, "You know what? Actually, I'm gonna open up a coffee shop." and we're just
right?
amazing with numbers. Like there's the accountants don't open coffee shops. And coffee shop people who open those aren't not to say that they're not great with their numbers, but it's not like numbers. The whole numbers game is the first thing that comes to mind. You're concerned about customers, your employees, your customer experience. Do your drinks even taste good? It's really easy
Yep.
to lose track of the numbers if you're not like somebody who's an accountant brain, just constantly like dreaming about numbers. So that's the biggest pitfall that most of coffee shop owners fall into. Like you're saying, it's like, well, my daily sales are making me happy today. Tomorrow I'll probably be sad, and it's just like that constant like I just watch the daily sales and my emotions in the roller coaster I'm going on is just up and down and stress. I'm not stressed. I'm stressed. I'm not stressed. That's such a hard way to live and run a business. You have to be at least cognizant of what those important key metrics are for your business outside of just your bank account.
And I think realistically, like, I think most people have gotten to a spot where, so let me say this before you think we're just going to trash you the whole time as we talk about this topic. We're not here to tear you down. We're not here to make you feel insecure. We're not here to make you angry. What we're here is to hopefully give you some tools, some good reference points. We take a deep dive on this topic in Coffee Experts Academy. We take 4 whole weeks on it or 4 whole modules, 4 whole sessions where we deep dive on this and we look at like your P&Ls, and then we look at profitability, and then we look on how you're spending your labor, and we break everything down really, really clear. If you're looking for a deep dive, there's a deep dive there. Ben and I are just going to give you a thumbnail here today, but we still want the thumbnail to be valuable to you. So don't take this wrong. We're not here to trash you. What we're here to say is this is important. You already know it's important, right? Even as we start talking about it, you're probably experiencing anxiety. You've got this like weight sitting on your chest because you're like, for it, I don't understand my numbers. And I think most people have gotten to the place where they have started to use their gross numbers as the lead indicator, right? As long as I'm doing $1,000 days, as long as I'm doing whatever the number is that you require, you know that they have to do that. And the days that it's less that, and you feel anxiety. The days that are more than that, you're like, okay, so you've got like a dirty math going in your mind of how many days you've done over this much and how many days. And so you're working it, or maybe you pull up your Square report or your Toast report or whatever POS system you're using. And you're like, okay, I've got a pretty good working knowledge. But what that doesn't take in consideration is the big spends, right? The stuff
Hmm.
where big machines go down, you have to buy a large quantity of multiple months worth of stock. Maybe you have a problem come up with some baristas and you need extra training. So then you got to load in some training hours. Like those things aren't accounted for in the dirty math of like how much do we need to gross top line, I would call it. What you need to be watching is your bottom line. But the only way that you can get to your bottom line is if you put your bank statements into an accounting software and let it pull numbers for you. Let it account out for you. Now, a lot of problems that I've seen with people is most owners are trying to do it all themselves. So
Hmm.
they're trying to reconcile bank statements. And that's like the worst job. If you are a coffee shop owner, the worst thing that you could do for yourself is try and do everything because you're going to burn out. You can't possibly do everything. And so, what EOS would teach, which is Entrepreneur's Operating System, taken from Gino Wickman's book, Traction, it would say you need to delegate down so you can elevate up. And this is a very easy thing to delegate down
Yep.
because there are a ton of people out there that will reconcile your bank statements and drop them into a accounting piece of software for you. Cost a couple $100 maybe for them to do it once a month. And then you'll have a working report that you can begin to analyze. Ben, what do you think about that?
I think every coffee shop owner I've ever talked to, I've always encouraged to get a part-time bookkeeper at the very
Yep.
least. Somebody, especially if you've just got one or two locations, that is not a full-time position. That's like
Yep.
somebody who's going to come in and work for you 10 hours, maybe a week. Like
Yep.
that alone is, I know it's immediately, you go, oh, that's an expense that I now have to pay for, but your sanity's sake for that 10 hours a week that you're paying somebody to do your books is priceless. And it begins to relieve that weight that's on your chest going, I know I have to go file my payroll taxes. I
Yep.
really don't want to do that. And so you put it off and you put it off and you put it off. Get somebody to do that for you because, I mean, I'm not exactly a super, nerdy accountant head. I consider myself a little bit interested in numbers. I hate that. I don't even file my own stuff. I have a CPA who does that for my business. Like,
Yep.
I'm the first thing I did. I don't even run a coffee shop. I was like, there's no way I'm going to do my own taxes. I'm going to do my own books. I'm going to hire somebody to do that for me because I can't. I got to keep my sanity. So if you're in a day to day business and trying to get customers in your door and you're trying to mediate two employees who just got in an argument while they were on bar. And you're like, oh
Right.
God, this again. Like the last thing you want to be is at the end of the day, go and file your payroll taxes. So absolutely get somebody to do that for you.
And the cool thing is, I think, we talked about last week a little bit on the show, we were talking about marketing and finding somebody that could help you with your marketing. The cool thing is that you've got a cool business, right? Think about all the people out there that don't have cool businesses, right? You've got a coffee shop. You probably have a lot of locals that love your stuff. You could post on your socials and say, hey, looking for some bookkeeping help, interested in maybe doing it for trade. And you probably could trade product for time, just at the
Mhm.
beginning of, hey, I just need, all I need you to do is input my bank statements into my accounting piece of software, right? There's probably some cost, and that's not huge. QuickBooks Online isn't crazy, So let's say it's like 30 or 40 bucks a month, maybe, and maybe you're like, that sounds like a lot. It's not a lot for a peace of mind, right? So
Yeah.
if you could just find somebody who could do some trade, who will reconcile your bank statement for you. I know, just complete transparency, what I do for all of my companies is I meet with my gal that reconciles my stuff once a week on Wednesdays, Wednesday evenings, 5:30 for a half hour. And she, every week, she's not waiting to the end of the month to put in my charges. She's entering my charges on a weekly basis. And every week we meet and she has questions for me on how she's categorizing. And she has questions about this and she has questions about that. And then by the end time we get to the end of the month, she ties off the books. It doesn't take very much time at all. So we're talking about maybe like an hour or two a week, maybe, for her to go through it and for us to meet. She ties it off at the end of the month. And then I can pull numbers. And I know I go into detail. And obviously, you're listening to this podcast now, so you can't see it. But in Coffee Experts Academy, I pull up the an average P&L and I show you store against store so that you can look at your numbers month over month and see how are my cost of goods doing,
Mhm.
because it should be a very budgetable expense. And if a lot of times we found, we've talked about it a lot on Coffee Experts Academy, is like your managers aren't going to value it the same way you do. They're going to want to go deep into stock, make sure they have lots of stuff because
Yeah.
they don't want to run out. But a lot of times then that puts a lot of your cash on the shelves instead of leaving it liquid where you want. You want a budgetable amount for your cost of goods every single month. You want a budgetable amount for your labor every single month. And you can't know those things unless you're pulling that into a piece of software. You can't just like shoot from the hip on that. But I know Ben and I would ride our managers on, hey, are you in the window of your percentage? We would try and hold somewhere between a 17 and a 21% variable when it came to labor. Like,
Mhm.
know your labor numbers, know how much you know them, hold your managers accountable for them. Ben, I know we talked about on Coffee Experts Academy, even an efficiency metric, one
Yep.
that we could hold people accountable to and then bonus them out. You want to talk about that for a minute? Because I felt like that was something you and I created that was pretty badass.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about creating ownership, right? And you can create ownership in your managers culturally, and that's great. That gives them, that's great culture to have in your shop. But that only goes so far. Like you can only roo rah rah the troops so far before they're like, oh, what are we rawing for? I'm not getting anything out
Right.
of this.
Right.
Um, So we created a bonus incentive plan based off of what they could control, and we gave them ownership in how large or small that bonus would be based directly off of the cost of goods, the labor
Yep.
that they could actually control within their own shop. So it created this piece of ownership so the manager could say, well, if I'm actually really good at controlling my cost of goods. I mean, I think I use the example all the time of we'd have a manager who it would be the middle of December and they'd buy, 7 cases of strawberry smoothie mix, at like $70 a case. And you're like, dude, it's December. There's snow on the ground. Nobody's buying this much strawberry smoothie. And they'd always inevitably say, well, I know, but I don't want to run out. I'm
Yep.
like, "Okay, but this is 3 months worth of smoothie mix, dude. Come on."
Right.
So that's just cash sitting on the shelf that could be used otherwise. Well, if we can incentivize and give a little bit of ownership to that manager to say, "Hey, maybe I don't need this strawberry smoothie mix so much, and actually if I order less of it, all of our bonuses in our location go up." So if I'm
That's
smart,
right.
I can lower my cost of goods. If I can cut labor somewhere, I don't need 6 people on bar on a Tuesday night. Maybe I just
Yep.
need 3. Then they can actually work to make the shop more profitable, make you more profitable, and increase their own profit and the bonus that we would give them every month. And sure enough, you lay out a plan like that and you're really transparent with it. And all of a sudden, 20-year-old kids who are like, "Yeah, this is a fun job. Who cares?" Are all
Yep.
of a sudden like, "Hey, hey, hey, how much labor are we using right now?" We'd have assistant managers, talking to the managers about, "Hey, hey, do we need this many people on bar right now?" You'd have other
Yep.
baristas asking their manager, "Hey, should I be here or do we need all of us? Should one of us go home?" And it just
Yep.
creates this ownership inside the shop that's ultimately profitable for everybody.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times owners of businesses think of one number, and that's sales.
Yep.
How do I drive more sales? How do I get the top line bigger, right? Because that's the metric they can control. So they post crazy deals on socials, right? We do all these things where we try and draw in more customers, because more customers equals more cups, equals more dollars, equals me feeling better in the bank account, right? Like, I think you always have to root down to, what are you trying to get at? More money in the bank account? Well, there's two different levers you can pull for more money in the bank account. There's either the lever that most owners will pull, which is the lever of sales, or there's cost control, which is the other lever, right? Like, the other lever is, how are you controlling your spending, right? So there's sales and there's controlling of spending. And that shouldn't just be you or you having to watch everything. Like Ben said, if you can give them metrics that they can track, these are smart people that you got hired for you.
Mhm.
Like, a lot of times you think that they're only there to do your scheduling, only there to order the stuff, only there to show up early when you don't want to be there, or stay there late when you don't want to be there. That's these kids that we have working for us. They actually want more responsibility. They want to learn about the business. So
Mhm.
if you can give them tools, right, it's only going to benefit them. So Ben and I, we created sales and reach goals that we wanted them to sell for, right? And then we would award whoever got the top one of those, we would bonus them out, right? So we
Mhm.
bonus out the management team that could form the top sales within the stores. And we also had this efficiency ratio, this efficiency matrix, that we would give them a pool of resource. We're talking about all your profit. We control the number, right? So you take your cost, you take your gross sales, right? The amount of money you're selling every month. You subtract out of that your cost of goods. You subtract out of that your labor. Those are pretty much the two things that your managers can control: how much they're
Yep.
spending and how much they're controlling labor. It creates an efficiency net, right? A new number that we've just created, that is like, this is what's left over. A percentage of that now we're going to turn into opportunity for you to make incentive. We're going to incentivize you to be more profitable. And the more profitable you are, the more you'll get to taste of that. And then are able to create layers. Like, this is just average greed stuff. And then this is your assistant manager. And then this is your manager. And then this is your regional manager if you have more than one store. And each one of those gets a percentage based upon this pool of money that is just money they saved you. That's not money
Mhm.
you're coming up with. It's the money that they saved you. And then you're able to bonus them out based upon savings. So you've got two different levers: sales and efficiency. And I
Yep.
think if you can give them those two controls, they want to learn. And then you don't have to be stressed all the time.
Yep. Like I said, it's so much easier to do that, to push and pull those levers when you have your entire company focused on pushing and pulling those levers. Which, especially if you're at the 3, 4, 5 location mark, and it's just you, maybe a regional manager, and as a small leadership team, and it's the focus of maybe 4 or 5 people are like, all right, how can we adjust sales? How can we adjust cost of goods? That's really difficult because you're not in the shop, like I said, on a Tuesday night with
Right.
the new kid who just keeps dumping stuff on the ground on accident because he's brand new and he's just wasting milk or wasting product. Like, you can't be there all the time. So if you can get your entire company, everybody on board, focused on these two levers, and you do that through incentivizing them and bonusing them, well, then all of a sudden, new guy Joe on a Tuesday night's a little more concerned on if he accidentally drops an entire gallon of milk on the ground or not. He's going to be a little more careful because he knows directly that, hey, this actually affects my paycheck. Not that we're subtracting it out of his paycheck every week,
Sure.
but if he saves it, it could make it larger just by being a little more aware and having a little more ownership in it. So it's much easier to do, to push and pull those levers when you have all of your people focused on that. And the only way you do it, like I said, is creating ownership through some sort of incentive program.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need, from coming up with your plans and talking with the city, and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team, and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee. And It's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there. And then from there, you're able to create simple numbers, right? Like I know early days, Ben, back at Roasters, like we had cups, right? Number
Mhm.
of cups dictates how much labor you have on the field. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit? You don't have to get into the nerdy part of it, but essentially that was the long and the short of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it started with cups, and then we moved to hourly sales. You need some sort of hard metric that you can say X equals X amount of people on bar.
Yep.
100 cups equals 2 people on bar.
Right.
$100 per hour equals 2 people on bar. And then something that you can scale so that I go, okay, but what is $200 an hour? Or what is 200 cups? Okay, that's 3 people on bar. Because otherwise, your managers are just shooting by the hip and they'll go, well, I think it'd be great if we had 4 people on bar all day, every day, even
Right.
though, we get in the middle of the night, we get barely any customers. So
Right.
you don't want to give them that gut check ability. You say you want to give them the hard metric of X equals Y when it comes to baristas. Thankfully, if you're using any sort of scheduling program these days, most of them, if you're using like a hot schedules or a 7 shifts, they do a really good job of all you have to do is put in your historical sales data and it'll give you a good, average of what you should use when it comes to labor. But of course, you always want your manager looking at that. But if you don't even have that solid number of, if we do have this many customers, we need this many bodies, it's going to be so hard. And what you'll find is you'll either A, be always understaffed, which, somebody's going to come into your shop and it takes them 5 minutes to get a cup of coffee. They're not coming back. Or B, you're so horribly overstaffed that you're just hemorrhaging money and you're like, we're busy, but I don't understand why I'm not making any money. Like, we're always busy, but I'm not making money. Well, it's because you have 6 people on bar and another guy who's just kind of sweeping the back room for the last 4 hours. Like, let's cut out some of that labor. And then all of a sudden, what do you know? You're making money and you still got the same amount of customers coming in.
Yeah. And I think honestly, what you're trying to get to, so let's break it all down for you. Cause maybe you're like, Aaron, my head's already spinning. I was already overwhelmed before I even started listening to the show. And now I'm listening to the show and now I'm super overwhelmed. So let's just break it down super simple. We talked about at the beginning of the show, you don't have to do everything, right? And it's probably best you don't do everything. So find a kid that's going through school that is getting their accounting degree that just wants to enter in your bank statements
Yep.
into your accounting software, right? That's where it starts. A couple hours a week. Trade them a few cups of coffee for it, right? Give them a gift card. Let them keep chalking it up on it and put a certain amount on there. And all they have to do is enter your transactions for you and reconcile it for you at the end of the month. Then meet with that person just 1/2 hour a week and let them show you what they've been doing. Let them ask you questions that they might have. So none of these things are hard lifts yet, right? We're talking about a few cups of coffee. Your baristas are probably giving that away anyway right now, right? Like few cups of coffee, a lot of gift cards on that's controllable, a 1/2 hour of your time for you just to look at what they're doing, for you to ask questions, for them to ask you questions. So that then by the end of the month, you're able to pull a profit and loss statement, a P&L, right? Maybe you've heard those terms and you've like, Aaron, you would be so surprised, Ben. There are so many high level entrepreneurs that are like, Aaron, I don't know how to read my P&L. That's okay. Like you're not the accounting genius, like, but at least you're able to pull a P&L and then talk through it with them. Hey, what do you see in that? What are things that stand out to you? Like, let them start helping you think through that, or go check out copyexpertsacademy.com and like buy the course and get the download for 4 hours, but find somebody that knows how to read a P&L. And then what you're able to do is pull those reports and then watch them week over week and watch where there's variance, because you should get to the point that, like I know now, I look at P&Ls all the time for coffee shops. You're more than welcome to reach out to us on any of the socials. Say, hey, Aaron, would you just help me look at my P&Ls? I would love to look at your P&Ls with you. I already know that your cost of goods should be somewhere within like the 36 to 38, maybe 40 at most percentile. Like that's how much you should be spending on cost of goods. And your labor ideally should be somewhere between like 17 and 25 at most percent of your labor. And then your actual expenses, the full bottom line at the bottom, you should be thinking about how much else am I supposed to be spending when it comes to other expenses? How much is my rent costing me? It's very hard to make those kind of decisions if you don't know how that works, but your
Mhm.
expenses should be somewhere in the line of like 32 to 40%. And then that's what drives how much profit you have after all those things are taken out. So your labor rolls up and your expenses held down against your cost of goods, and you're going to get a bottom line number. So that's what they mean by top line number versus bottom line number. And your net at the bottom, that's your profit. That's how much you're taking home. And that's what enables you to know, are we making it or not? It shouldn't be a gut check, because otherwise, like I was talking about, I met with the gal last week, super sweet gal, super smart gal, super powerful gal, but she didn't know her numbers well enough. And she was so sick every day because she was watching her bank account fluctuate and she just
Mhm.
knew. And I don't feel like we're making it, but I'm like, no, 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 take a step back. Let's look at your locations. You've got great locations. How are your sales daily? No, you've got great daily sales. Okay, so then you have slippage somewhere. Do you know where the slippage is at? No, she didn't have any idea because she wasn't tracking her numbers and it was creating this anxiety. It's like, no, no, no. It can be so much simpler than that if we just input the numbers with a kid for a half hour, an hour a week,
Yep.
like sit down and look at it a half hour a week, look at it maybe an hour a month after that. You know what I mean? And then from there, make decisions based on how can we shave down? How can we increase up? We've talked about it a bunch of times. That's how you're able to make the decisions about cost of goods of maybe I should look at creating my own energy drink. Maybe should look at creating my own frat mix. Maybe I should white label with Indie, Indie Coffee Coalition, where we're selling it at half the price that Red Bull is selling it for the sake of the independent coffee shops to be able to have their own energy drink by cutting their costs so that they can save more money, so they can put money away, so they can build that next location because efficiencies come in twos and threes. Like
Yep.
the more that you're able to open, the more doors you're able to open, the less pressure it's putting on just one door or just two doors. And then you have the efficiency of three and plus, and that's where we found the magic happens. After number three, that's where the magic happens. Ben, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about damage control when it comes to know your numbers. Know your numbers so you're not hemorrhaging cash, you're not bleeding, you're not slippage. But really, I mean, that's great. That's super important. But like you said, knowing your numbers gives you positive opportunities as well. If I don't know my cost of goods, if I sell a 24-ounce energy drink with flavor, if I don't know how much that drink actually costs to make, like, how how
Yep.
how much are the ingredients? How much is the cup? How much is the straw? How much is the energy drink? How much is the amount of flavor you're putting in? If you don't know that, then you probably don't know that if you make your own energy drink or if you white labeled energy drink, that's probably your lowest cost of good product, which means that if you heavily discounted that for a deal, you'd still probably make break even or make a little bit of a profit. You'd undercut your competition around you, and you'd blow up a couple afternoon hours because you're selling energy drinks for $1.50 instead of $5 like everybody else around you. So
Yep.
those types of things you'll never know unless you actually get down into, okay, what are my numbers? If I
Yep.
sell an energy drink for $5 retail and I know that it costs me $1.37 to make just raw ingredients and labor, well then shoot, I know that every Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I can do, $2 Tuesdays on energy drinks and just blow up that hour with kids. I can have traffic. I can still actually kind of be making a profit, and I'm just boosting sales and experience around my location with high school kids right as they get out of high school or school for the day. So, like those types of things you don't know unless you're digging into your numbers and going, okay, what can I do positively for my business by knowing how my numbers look weekly and monthly?
Yeah, I mean, Ben, think it through something like roasters where they had 15 shops and a roastery. I think something like that, you're looking at a lot of different stores, which makes it really advantageous when you're looking at side by side numbers, right? Because you have some stores that are killing it. We had some stores that were doing $130,000 a month and other stores that were doing $40,000 a month, right? But you're able to spread that out across. But I think might surprise most people is that once you start putting your numbers into an accounting software and you start looking at them side by side, you start noticing things. And something that used to always blow my mind, Ben, is we would have a store like Richland or like Road 68 or like Keenan Kennedy that was like $130,000 store a month in like an average winter month, right? And then you would have like a West Richland that had nowhere near that kind of spending power. You know what I mean? Like you had a store like West Richland that was grossing maybe 65,000. So literally half the number, but because of the way that Wes had negotiated that lease, because of a couple different things that made that store magic, they were actually almost as profitable as the stores that were doing
Mhm.
$130,000. So don't think that you have to have some banging store that's lit on fire that's like always crazy. I mean, a $65,000 store a month is not even $1 million a year. You know what I mean? Like it's not $1 million store. Everybody's like, I see a lot of the franchise and they're like, every coffee shop can be grossing $1 million. And that's just not real. Like every shop cannot do that, and I always tell people, hey, pump the brake when a franchise starts telling you that kind of stuff. That's not true. But what you can do is realize even a store that doesn't gross that much, if you're able to tighten and ratchet down on some of the other spending, you can actually get to be as profitable as some of those over $1 million stores a year because you're just watching it. But you have to know your numbers. If you
Yep.
don't know your numbers, listen, I know this doesn't feel sexy. I know you don't want to do this, but I promise you, you're experiencing so much anxiety because you won't just take the time. Very simple, small tweaks, right?
Yep.
Find somebody that can put your books in. Reconcile it just this month. Don't feel like you have to catch up the last 9 months right now. Start just this month, right? And then start looking at your numbers. And then ask people who know. Find professionals, find experts that can come alongside you that can say, hey, this is what I think. This is where I think you should go. It's probably worth a little bit of time. Pay somebody that might be able to sit alongside you. We would love to sit alongside you. Like, let's just take a look. And I think that what you'll find is a lot of your anxieties have to do with you being afraid and not doing the things that you know you need to do, but it's really not as hard as it feels. It's
Hmm.
just you're overwhelmed. So find somebody else, right? Delegate and elevate. What can you delegate down? You delegate down what no longer requires your brilliance. This is not something that requires your brilliance. Let somebody else put in your numbers and then you push and pull on it. Once you have sets of weeks, sets of months, line by line, set out side by side. And then the beauty is once you have that, then you can ratchet down at all the things Ben and I talked about. Ben created a crazy good sheet of profitability on drink. I
Hmm.
mean, like, how do you get to how profitable your drink is? But that only comes from understanding what your numbers are. And if you don't start with knowing what your numbers are, it makes it really hard to break it down in some of these other niche reports.
I
Ben,
agree.
well, you created it. So don't break your arm, pat yourself on the back. You're right. That was a great report. Hey, coffee experts, we are so grateful that you sat with us today. I know today's not the most exciting episode, but I promise you it's the most peace-giving episode if you'll just learn it.
Yep.
Coffee Dealers Minus Down in Belize has been such a gift to us because we understand our profitability and we understand the numbers we need to hit. And it makes life so much different. And location number one paid for half of location number two, and location number 1 and 2 are paying for the complete build of number 3 because we understand our numbers and we know where we're at. So understand your numbers, lean in and let us support you if you want it. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. All of our listeners, thanks for being here. And we'll see you next week here on Coffee Experts Club.
Yes. See you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.